in honor of Pride Month. Andrew Gillum, the once destined politician to do great things for the state of Florida, who was exposed as being a bisexual man, has now been indicted for wire fraud on not one, not two, but 21 counts. And I forgot to mention, it's federal. Let's get into it, shall we? Hey, what's up? I'm back. I had to do that because let me tell you something. When that whole story broke out in March of 2020 with Andrew Gillum, I said, you know what? This is a crying shame. And I still got those two videos up from March 2020 and September 2020. But first, we're going to talk about this scandal that broke. And I'm going to give it to you from NBC News, the channel that was really rooting for him back in 2018. It reads political news. Andrew Gillum, DeSantis' 2018 opponent, indicted for wire fraud and false statements. Once a rising Democratic star in Florida, Gillum and his mentor are accused of fraudulent fundraising. He says he's innocent. Andrew Gillum, the once rising Florida Democratic star who narrowly lost the 2018 governor's race to Ron DeSantis, was hit with a 21-count federal indictment Wednesday for wire fraud, related conspiracy charges, and making false statements. Gillum, the former Tallahassee mayor, was charged, along with his mentor, Sharon Letman Hicks, for fraudulently fundraising from various entities between 2016 to 2019, according to a Department of Justice press release. The Justice Department said the two allegedly diverted some of the money to a company controlled by Letman Hicks, who fraudulently disguised the funds as payroll payments to Gillum. In a written statement, Gillum and his lawyers proclaimed his innocence. Letman Hicks, a candidate for a state house seat, has not returned texts or calls from NBC News requesting comment. I have spent the last 20 years of my life in public service and continue to fight for the people, Gillum said. Every campaign I've run has been done with integrity. Make no mistake that this case is not legal. It is political. Throughout my career, I have always stood up for the people of Florida and have spoken truth to power. There has been a target on my back ever since I was the mayor of Tallahassee. They found nothing then, and I have full confidence that my legal team will prove my innocence now. The indictment marks a new low for Gillum, a married father of three who withdrew from public life as a political leader and a paid CNN commentator after a March 2020 sex scandal involving a suspected male overdose victim in a South Beach hotel. At the time, Gillum said he was abusing alcohol as he coped with his loss to DeSantis, but campaign finance records and a leaked criminal subpoena in 2019 showed that Gillum also faced the pressure of an FBI investigation. Two sources with whom Gillum spoke Tuesday told NBC News that he began phoning friends frantically about the criminal case when he was informed that the indictment was imminent. Neither would speak on the record because they weren't authorized to speak on his behalf. They said Gillum rendered himself to prosecutors at 10 a.m. and that his indictment could be unsealed at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He makes his first appearance at 2 p.m., according to DOJ. He's down, he's sad, he feels beat up, one of the sources said. Both face 19 counts of wire fraud and a conspiracy to commit wire fraud, each of which carries a maximum 20-year prison sentence. Gillum faces 2 additional charges of lying to investigators, each charge of which carries a maximum 5-year sentence. According to the indictment, the FBI began to sniff out the alleged scheme of Gillum and Letman Hicks in 2016 when he was mayor and uncovered agents and undercover agents investigating corruption in the city was steered to him. The two allegedly used his position as mayor, as a progressive activist, and then as a top candidate for governor to skim money from a variety of individual donors and nonprofits, fraudulently pretending to perform voter outreach or to fight for local government rights, while pocketing the cash, even after his campaign for governor ended in 2018. Gillum's decision to resign from his job at the liberal group People for the American Way in 2017 was particularly stressful for him, the indictment said, because he could not absorb the loss of the $122,500 annual salary. According to the indictment, he and Letman Hicks then arranged for more money to flow through her communications business, P&P Communications, which paid him as an employee or as a contractor. Gillum has been under federal investigation for years, starting with his time as Tallahassee mayor when he accepted freebies from lobbyists and special interests, including a free New York Harbor boat ride and tickets in New York to the musical Hamilton, which was supplied by an undercover FBI agent posing as a corrupt developer with a company called Southern Pines. Gillum was not charged in asking, but he agreed to pay a $5,000 state ethics bond for improperly accepting gifts. At one point, one of the undercover FBI agents offered to contribute money to Gillum, surreptitiously on the condition that Southern Pines receive favorable consideration in City Hall. And the indictment said, Gillum, unaware that he and the unnamed associate were talking to an undercover agent, later lied in June 2017 to the FBI by saying he had cut off contact with Southern Pines, according to the indictment. The FBI investigation and the revelations of his hobnobbing with lobbyists helped doom his campaign against DeSantis, who repeatedly described Gillum as corrupt and defeated by the Democrats by less than half a percentage point. I got to repeat that again. And defeated the Democrat by less than half a percentage point. The campaign made Gillum a dynamic speaker and the Democratic Party's first black gubernatorial nominee in Florida into a political celebrity and a sought-after speaker. After his loss, he became a CNN commentator, a Harvard University guest lecturer, a frequent guest on Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO, and converted his political committee into a voter registration effort in 2019, pledging to sign up and re-engage 1 million voters to help Democrats turn Florida blue. But by the end of the year, Gillum was paying more money for legal work to top Democratic lawyer Mark Elias, who downplayed the federal subpoena asking Gillum for numerous records in 2019. In my experience, this is a kind of inquiry campaigns often received once an election is over, Elias told the Tallahassee Democrat at the time. I am confident that Forward Florida and Mayor Gillum have complied with the law, and the facts will bear that out. On Wednesday, Elias and his co-counsel for Gillum, top criminal defense attorney David Oscar Marcus, issued a joint statement pledging to clear Gillum's name. The government got it wrong today. The evidence in this case is clear and will show that Mr. Gillum is innocent of all charges. We look forward to putting this case to rest and giving Andrew and his family peace of mind once and for all, the lawyers said. The wide-ranging subpoena wasn't limited to Gillum's campaign and sought information about his work for a nonprofit, his ties to a wealthy donor in Letman Hicks, who was the top advisor to Gillum's gubernatorial campaign and his Tallahassee City Commission and mayoral races. Letman Hicks, a consultant who runs the National Black Justice Coalition that advocates for black LGBTQ people, suggested in 2019 that the federal investigation was racially motivated. I happen to be a pawn being used by the oppressor to raise even more speculation about how an educated, working-class black man could run a phenomenal statewide campaign, become a national phenomenon, and didn't resort to backhanded tactics to advance his agenda, she wrote in a Facebook post in his reaction to the subpoena. Earlier this month, Letman Hicks filed to run for a state house seat after the incumbent Representative Raymond Alexander resigned amid a sexting scandal. She told a Tallahassee Democrat she running to be a check on DeSantis, who was up for re-election. The governor is operating with unchecked power. I think it is unhealthy to sit on the sidelines and see democracy in peril and not do everything in your power as a citizen to be a counter voice. Correction, June 22nd, 2022, 3:54 p.m. Eastern Time. A previous version of this article misstated the terms of the prison sentence Gillum and Letman Hicks would face if convicted of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The maximum sentence, not the minimum, on each count is 20 years. They each face 19 counts. So we're going to talk about this. I read that for 10 minutes. Wow, I got some strong lungs. Praise God. So, number one, now I understand why he came out the closet. He wasn't coming out the closet so much to be a part of the community. He was coming out the closet to cover up the indictment. And that's why his wife was going along with it, because it was better for him to admit to being bisexual than to talk about this ongoing federal investigation. Now, I find it interesting that this young lady named Sharon Letman Hicks was his campaign manager, and they was in on a scheme, and she works for the Black National Justice Coalition, which is a front, National Black Justice Coalition, which advocates for Black LGBT people. And many people criticize that, and they say it's a front organization that's pushing like a certain agenda in terms of like the children. That's a whole other thing. So I don't know about that, but that's what I've read a couple of years ago. And what I do know is that they like to label people homophobes and things like that. But it seems like it's going downhill for Andrew Gillum since DeSantis beat him by half a point, which I would be honest, I can understand in a sense, because it's like he was the one that people thought was going to win. And I remember people really said that they really believed that Andrew really won. There was people there that believed that Andrew really won to this day, that the half a point was absurd. But because Andrew wasn't liked by the people there, for some reason, they would rather have DeSantis because he could push a certain agenda. And at the time, guess who was there? That's all I'm going to say. Now, I'm going to go deeper. I believe that they've been following this man for a long time. I believe that when the operation happened, when he got caught with the Bussy situation, I believe that some of those people in the room were FBI agents. I believe that certain people that he was around was FBI. You got to be careful when it comes to politics. I learned that when I was in college. Okay? I loved it. I'm going to be honest with you. I loved it. But you can love something and still got to be careful with it, because there's a lot of snakes. A lot of people who get involved in politics, they're good people. But there are snakes in the grass that wants your position, and they'll want to set you up. I'm not a fan of him because I don't believe that he treats his wife right. If you're going to be bisexual, you need to be transparent. And doing what he did in March of 2020, just before the pandemic, it was just gross. They was doing horrible things in that photo. So that's my issue with him. But what I will say is that there are people that didn't want this man as governor. And we know the obvious, number one. But another thing we have to say is, how do we know that this is going on? Because they don't want him to run. Because there are people that really want DeSantis. I mean, like, they want DeSantis. It's like, they want DeSantis. And if DeSantis doesn't get elected, they will go BS crazy. If you know what I mean. So they're not playing. So you got to understand how the game works at the end of the day. If you want to be a part of this game, you got to be 10 steps, not 2 steps. You got to be 10 steps ahead of your opponent. And his opponents are everywhere. And, you know, he was half an inch close to making history. So it's a lesson to all. And with that being said, it's your girl, Miss Ann Little Comb, signing off. Thank you for listening to my commentary. I know this one might or might not be monetized because of the subject matter. It is what it is. But I had to comment on it. If you haven't, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. Please share. Please like and comment. I would love to hear from you, whether you agree or disagree with me. Also, hit the notification bell to receive more notices about any uploads I post or when I go live. And with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.